sometimes making the international connection takes a little extra oomph, Charles. But you know what they say, nothing worth doing is easy, and nothing easy is worth doing. How are you, Charles?
I'm good. I'm good. I couldn't reveal where I was, but now I can tell you that and tell the audience that I was in an aptly named part of the world, concerning this gentleman, in quotes, who features in the art department's excellent poster, Joe Rotgut, corrupt shit artist, idiot, incompetent, extraordinary president. I was up in, it's spelled Phuket, but it's
Oh,
pronounced
yeah.
Phuket. And I decided to go on a day-long expedition to the appropriately named PP Islands. It's actually Fiji, is the way it's spelled, but they pronounce it PP Islands, which is basically Joe Biden's White House, Joe Biden's main house, and Joe Biden's beach house. Well, the guy has, he can't string a sentence together. In his latest thing, he said, got to go to the Situation Room. I mean, I think what he really meant is he had to go to the bathroom and clean up whatever mess, the latest mess he's made in his pants. I mean, this guy is the most dangerous human being on the planet. We talk about Vladimir Putin being dangerous, or Xi being dangerous. This guy has weaponized the Justice Department, the IRS, against political opponents of the demon rats and the rhinos, and of his own, in his own fit of pique against people he feels bother him, especially including Trump, and around the world. Well, I guess we've all decided, the investigative journalists in the mainstream have decided, we're not going to hold anybody to account. We're just going to let this doofus send special operators into Israel, pull the plug on Afghanistan, leave us in a place in Iraq where our troops are exposed. Our troops are exposed everywhere. Negotiate behind everybody's back and give the Iranians $6 billion and more by way of overlooking the sanctions. So he's put a price on every American, not just service member, but every American around the world. And he blithely goes around from weakness to weakness. I mean, the story breaks recently that he, in June of 2017, as we spoke in the last broadcast, he pays all cash for a beach house he doesn't need. And the mainstream press doesn't say poop about it. And over the weekend, he decides, as the Middle East is imploding, that he's so cocksure of his position, so cocksure he'll never be impeached or removed, that he's going to go. He spent the weekend at this freaking beach house that he probably blood money.
Yeah.
And the mainstream, another chance to go to an invitation with Joe Biden. I would be, if I were in the mainstream press, I'd organize the White House press corps to boycott this administration. I would force Democrats to answer questions. Everything they decried Trump for, they need now to explain why they're supporting Biden doing the same thing or worse.
Worse.
It's just, I mean, think about it. We talked, I think, online, but not on air. In 2017, in the early days of the Trump administration, when Steve Bannon inartfully crafted the travel ban, giving the other side the opportunity to suggest that what Trump was doing is targeting Muslims and not radical Islamists, the mainstream press just went wall to wall with that. He's a racist. He's anti-Islam. He's anti-Hispanic because he wants to close the southern border. And now look where we are. We have likely Hezbollah cells, maybe Hamas cells, maybe even ISIS cells in the United States of America today. Why? Because Joe fuckwad Biden and his team opened up the southern border and sent messages around the world. Come on in, baby. Let the charities, he lets these charities, these crooked charities, funnel government money into these immigrants who have not been vetted, who can't be vetted. And so we don't know how many terrorist cells are now in this country, courtesy of Joe Biden. At the same time, he's inflaming passions around the world with his bullshit. And he's not even, he has a team on crack. He doesn't have a crack team. He has a team on crack, domestic and foreign. What?
Well, Charles, I'm literally, his team is on crack. I think what you're saying is absolutely correct. It's, I've never heard more people talk about World War III in a compressed period of time than I have in the past week. And of course, there have been all these attacks overseas on U.S. bases in Syria. It seems like, I saw somebody on Twitter saying, hey, this Hamas attack in Israel appears to be calculated to draw Israel into a larger war. And that really kind of echoed what that Israeli retired general said, where none of this makes sense, and driving headlong into the knee-jerk response seems to be taking us to World War III quickly, like next week.
Well, again, I think you have to think in terms. We have to think in terms of what, as Trump would refer to, China is all about here. China, if you go through the history, endured decades, more than a century, of the Brits with American support, channeling opium, kind of like fentanyl, channeling opium into its country, eviscerating a once great civilization, turning them into drug addicts and dope heads, and turning the place into a starvation dirt sandwich manufacturing operation. Some gum dirt instead of some whatever. And so they people who study Chinese history within China remember that, and they don't think it's such a bad thing for America to suffer. We're the largest drug market in the world, so there's that. And then,
largest what are we in the world, Charles?
Illegal drug market. Oh. We're the largest consumers of illegal drugs. Of course, people are sending, the cartels are sending drugs into us. Of course, the Chinese are sending, because we're the largest market. We're not going to change that.
Couldn't that be mitigated through education or something? I mean, why is that the U.S. is the largest market for illegal drugs?
Because recreational drug use is popular on college campuses and before that. I mean, it's a cool thing to do, and there's no penalty for using. And
so there's nothing that could be done? I don't think Japan has the kind of drug problem. I mean, they have stricter laws, of course, but...
Well, Japan is a homogeneous society, prone to follow the leader. We are a rambunctious society, heterogeneous, and unwilling to follow authority. And the way in which, if you want to stop illegal drug use, you kill the drug dealers publicly.
And stop the demand for it, though.
Well, yes, it will. If you start making examples of most of these drug dealers, I have done a little bit of studying on this, unfortunately. Most of these drug dealers don't use drugs. They know how dangerous they are. And so, you start going around America, and it should be easy. Our vaunted CIA, or whatever the organization would be that would do this, if our vaunted deep state can go to Google and go to these different places, go to the wireless companies, the telephone companies, and get records, it should be possible. These large enterprises are not run using an abacus, strings, and wire. They have to leave a digital footprint, and it should be possible to go all in against these kingpins. I mean, how many drug kingpins are there in Mexico and Colombia to start with? You just say to them, listen, your days are over. You, like the Islamic radicals, are going to be executed.
But the bigger problem, Charles, is I don't think the U.S. government wants that. Now, we've only got a few more minutes here on our YouTube segment, and we've yet to discuss that on Monday, almost all of the Crowdsource the Truth YouTube channels were deleted due to malicious activity from an obsessed individual who's been stalking me for 6.5 years. Luckily, we still have the Sunday with Charles channel. I'm sure that was just an oversight by him. He's probably writing an email to Google's lawyers right now, but people can access all of that deleted content on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, totally for free, Charles. People don't even have to become members on Odyssey to watch the legacy content for free, but you can also sponsor the show, and Odyssey is the most economical way to do that for as little as $3 a month. You can also join us on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. Don't forget to read the Twitter coup there. We'll also be on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And Charles, we've got about 3 minutes. I want to keep us on our normal schedule so we're not keeping you up too late. Mike Johnson looks like he might have a good shot at becoming the House Speaker. I would like that. Johnson is a very responsible and sober guy.
savvy guy. Yeah, did you met him? I think, and that would be encouraging. And I don't care what the Democrats say about how Republicans are governing, because I do know that this douchebag who's pretending he's the president of the United States part of the time when he's not on vacation and travel and at home. He had the balls to go out, week after week and say that he's cut the deficit. He's cut the deficit. And the news I read just recently that this most recent year is the third largest U.S. deficit in history. He did not cut the deficit. He's a bold-faced fucking liar. And people, instead of just politely sitting there as, I don't know, even Brett Baer, and letting a liar get away with this crap. I mean, you think about Trump's press conference in Singapore when everyone was shouting questions at him, and Jim Acosta was calling him a liar in a foreign country for the foreign press. I mean, our mainstream press is so milquetoastian and so pathetic that they allow these lies to go out over their air. And the trouble with that is that when they're uncorrected, a number of people, a large number, will see, well, made it through their New York Times censors or editors. It made it through, NBC, CNN, and
right.
ABC and CBS. The time you try to correct it, it's too late. The simpletons who participate in polls can say they weren't convinced. On the one hand, the first story said XYZ, and yes, there was a correction, but maybe the correction's wrong. And the mainstream press is just pathetic.
Yeah. Well, Charles, we're going to have plenty of time to discuss this in the First Amendment Forum. We're going to head over there right now. Please join us on any of the sponsorship platforms. It's incredibly important for people to become sponsors of the show. You see, Charles, there's a small but persistent group that would come in there and be like, oh, Jason should do all this stuff on YouTube. Everything would have been long gone, long ago, if I had done that. And in fact, it's the sponsor exclusive channels that are the glue that holds this Crowdsource the Truth community together. So thank you to everybody who has been sponsoring the show. If you're watching right now and you're not a sponsor, if you'd like Crowdsource the Truth to continue into the future, please become a sponsor. Thanks for watching. We'll be back in 5 minutes.